A group of 3 thugs went into a store at night. One of them wanted to buy coffee and get a free brownie, but the clerk said the promotion wasn't on the cup and the size XXL Nick. He started to slowly lose his temper. What got to him was that at night they wouldn't accept bills over $20 for something. I call the police, the poor woman. The sales girl was beaten up by a girl named Dallas. They saw a police car pulling up outside. A police car and a freebie got behind the counter, got his coffee for free. The cop left, but he came right back, wanting some free candy too. That's what got him killed. Hey, tonight we're gonna watch the movie Bloody Thursday. We're introduced to Casey, who gets a call from a friend at night of the books and asked him to crash, but his wife wasn't too happy about it. Their family was having some trouble to conceive, so they wanted to adopt the baby before she left for work. Reminded him that Dr. Jarvis was coming in this afternoon for an interview and then a decision about the placement. Later, Nick, who hadn't seen her in years. They hadn't seen in years. He told her that he too was out of the criminal world and was about to marry a French woman, then asked for a car and went about his business. After a failed attempt to work, if he noticed a briefcase left behind by Nick that reminded him of his criminal past. After a brief moment of thought, he opened it with a knife. Was a roll of heroin. He called Nick, and in a rage, I tell him everything, but the guy replied that he was busy and would be back in a couple of, and he flushed all the heroin down the sink. A little while later, the pizza delivery guy showed up. Wrong address. Casey suddenly got a sudden craving for pizza and talked the delivery guy into selling him some. The same way back, but as soon as they got inside the house, the blonde guy immediately got a Cuban and a gun to his head. The delivery guy came in for the heroin, but Casey disappointed him by showing him the Jamaican guy called his boss. He ordered Casey killed, but the latter had a wish, namely to smoke before he died. The courier decided to honor because he was a big fan of it. They sat down in the kitchen and talked, and maids wanted to be a rapper and even sent his records to studios. And when the time was right, he got a call from a music studio. Liked the performance and they wanted to hear his real voice right now while he was reading one of his compositions, forgetting all about Casey, the blonde guy. Took a moment and gave the rapper a good kicking. The rapper signed him to a contract or he's gonna be as soon as he tied up the courier. Drive. Jarvis came in during the conversation, and meat started making noise in the garage and Casey hung him by his feet after a while. Sometime later, Dallas came in. Casey, I was trying to kick the girl out, but I got interrupted by a phone call. First it was Nick, then the wife. While Casey was busy, the girl sat up in the living room and talked to the doctor. She told a bunch of dirty stories about how the Wanna was filmed and stuff like that. And then a story about Casey's life when he was still involved in crime. Casey and Nick were trying to take out a guy, a scumbag named Sledgehammer with a couple of FIMU. Flour under the guise of heroin is our problem. When the deception was revealed and not killed, and the opponents were killed. The girl. When the doctor heard the story, and no amount of reasoning from Casey didn't change his mind, and the owner of the house became a hostage again. Dallas demanded $2 million. But when she realized Casey really didn't know where the money was, she decided to wait for someone who turned out to be the one who ditched Dallas, to pass the time in lovemaking, but Casey had tactfully declined. But his opinion of the girl didn't care at all. She put up a picture of his wife so she could watch the process and started squeezing Casey for all his juices and to appease her partner in crime, Nico Bellic. Put a hole in the girl's head. He didn't throw it and he was beaten. He got a circular saw and a torch telling the story of how he spent 16 hours cutting the girl, cauterizing the Iranian, and thus preventing her from dying from blood loss, and promised to do the same thing to Casey just to pass the time while he waited for the nickname to arrive by the cops who showed up, had gone to a neighbor's house or had gone to observe, to see what they were up to while he was away. Casey freed himself and armed himself with a frying pan, A 45 caliber pistol in the refrigerator. A 45 caliber and you grab a frying pan. And when we didn't, China came back for a good one. Hit him a couple times. I pictured a revolver in my head, but I couldn't fire it, and then I hung him up next to the wrapper. Nick called again and confessed that he duped the cops for money and that they're coming for a visit soon, and also in the near future he's gonna get a visit from the cops. Nick's suitcase of dope, the black partners, he advised the blonde to get out of the country. The country, even telling him the exact place and time of departure of the airplane and hinted where to find the money. Nick himself was badly wounded, and after this conversation, we will never see him alive again. We'd never see him alive again. Casey cleaned up the blood-stained kitchen and had no sooner gotten himself to clean himself up when someone came in again. It was Detective Kazarov. He handed over the keys to the car that Nick had borrowed earlier. He also left a gift. The detective said to have the money by 7 o'clock. The money was there because he's been working with the nickname for so many years. He should know where to find the $2 million before the detective slapped the Ripper and the Maniac, in the presence of which he gasped and advised Casey to clean the place up before his wife came home. The blonde guy armed himself with a circular saw, and after a little over an hour, the job was done as he was carrying out the bags. It suddenly occurred to him where to find the money. Nick mentioned something about a spare tire, and soon Casey found not only the $2 million but also a gift from Nick for himself and his wife, a gold watch. Later, he called the rapper's cell phone and the May brothers and set up a meeting at his house tonight, or he would flush the merchandise down the toilet first at 7 o'clock sharp. The cops unceremoniously burst in, headed by Kazarov. A few minutes later, heavily armed fighters arrived. Broke into the house at this time. I met my wife and told her I had to leave the country. Out of the country. She was hesitant at first, but when she saw $2 million, her doubts faded away and they rushed to the airport.